The power of anticipation is one of the most misunderstood forces in human psychology, particularly when it comes to understanding how the female mind processes desire, motivation, and emotional engagement. Women's brains are wired to react more intensely to the anticipation of a reward than to the reward itself. It is a literal dopamine spike triggered by the buildup, the waiting, and the excitement of what is coming next. When a woman is looking forward to something, her brain releases a massive wave of dopamine, the feel-good chemical associated with desire and motivation, long before the event actually takes place. This means that the psychological tension, the daydreaming, and the mental preparation create a much more powerful neurological high than the final destination ever could. As one neuroscientist put it, dopamine is not the reward molecule, it is the anticipation molecule. The thrill is not in the having, but in the wanting. This deep-seated programming influences every major area of life, from the way she pursues long-term career milestones to how she handles daily experiences. For example, a woman might get just as much joy, if not more, out of researching destinations, booking flights, and picking out outfits for a vacation as she does when she is actually sitting on the beach. The journey, the planning, the imagining, all of it feeds a neurological hunger that the destination itself can never fully satisfy. In romantic relationships, this effect dictates the entire dynamic of attraction. The slow burn, the subtle tension, and the space between texts are not just games. They are essential fuel for female interest. If everything is handed over instantly without any buildup, the dopamine loop cuts short and the excitement dies. To keep a woman genuinely engaged, whether in business, marketing, or romance, you have to understand that the narrative arc matters infinitely more than the conclusion. It is the thrill of the chase, the mystery of what might happen tomorrow, and the deliberate pacing of an experience that captures her mind. When you remove the anticipation, you remove the value. Ultimately, the female mind thrives on the beauty of the journey, meaning that whoever masters the art of creating a compelling buildup masters the key to her attention. The second principle concerns the illusion of truth, a psychological phenomenon that reveals just how malleable human perception can be. The female brain is highly evolutionarily tuned to monitor social information and recognize patterns within a community. Historically, a woman's survival and the safety of her children depended entirely on her ability to integrate seamlessly with the tribe, decode social cues, and internalize collective wisdom. While this hyper-awareness was once a brilliant defense mechanism, the modern world exploits it through a psychological phenomenon known as the illusory truth effect. This effect dictates that the human brain naturally confuses familiarity with factual accuracy. As researchers have documented, people are more likely to judge repeated statements as true compared to new statements, a phenomenon that occurs regardless of whether the statements originated from a reliable or unreliable source. When a woman hears a specific statement, narrative, or critique repeated multiple times from different angles, her brain stops analyzing the statement critically and begins to accept it as objective reality. This happens entirely below conscious awareness, meaning that even if a piece of information is completely illogical or flat-out false, sheer repetition will eventually give it the weight of absolute truth. This psychological vulnerability plays out with devastating impact across cultural messaging, relationship dynamics, and internal dialogue. If the media, a social circle, or a toxic partner repeats a negative narrative long enough, it bypasses her logical filters and rewrites her entire worldview. Even worse, this loop turns inward in the form of negative self-talk. When a woman repeatedly tells herself she is not smart enough, capable enough, or attractive enough, her brain eventually registers those recurring thoughts as permanent facts. It completely reshapes her internal reality, driving her behavior and dictating her confidence levels. This is exactly why the environments women place themselves in are so critical. The stories, advice, and opinions she allows herself to hear on a loop will literally dictate what she believes is possible for her life, proving that what is repeated consistently always wins the battle for the mind. As the psychologist Lynn Hasher and her colleagues demonstrated, the illusory truth effect occurs when repeating a statement increases the belief that it is true even when the statement is actually false. Knowledge does not protect against illusory truth. Familiarity creates an illusion of truth for information encountered earlier. This is a sobering reminder that the mind is not always a reliable arbiter of reality. The third principle delves into the biological basis of empathy, a quality that is often celebrated but rarely understood in its full neurological complexity. Empathy in women is not just a deliberate emotional choice or a personality trait. It is a biological reality driven by hyperactive mirror neurons. Mirror neurons are specialized brain cells that fire both when an individual performs an action and when they witness someone else performing that same action. In the female brain, these cells are exceptionally active and sensitive. When a person nearby is experiencing intense joy, deep anxiety, or heavy sadness, a woman's brain does not just logically observe that emotion from a distance. Instead, her mirror neurons instantly fire up, replicating that exact emotional state within her own nervous system. She is literally feeling a direct internal echo of your pain or excitement. On a neurological level, she is absorbing and living the emotions of the people around her in real time, making her a human emotional sponge. This phenomenon explains why emotional contagion is so incredibly powerful in female friendships, families, and romantic dynamics. Emotions travel and infect a room like wildfire because a woman's brain is biologically designed to reflect the room's energy. While this hyperempathy allows for deep bonding, profound intuition, and unparalleled emotional intelligence, it carries a massive hidden cost. Constantly mirroring the world is physically, mentally, and biochemically exhausting. If a woman is trapped in a toxic relationship, a chaotic workplace, or surrounded by chronic complainers, she is not just witnessing negativity, she is neurologically experiencing it around the clock. Her stress hormones skyrocket just from being near the friction. Because of this intense wiring, a woman must be radically protective of her social circle and physical environment, as a negative space will quite literally drain her life force. As one observer noted, through mirror neurons and resonant circuitry, we are taking in each other's bodily state, feelings, and intention in each emerging moment. This explains why physical empaths seem to catch or absorb the illnesses of other people. The environment she surrounds herself with is not just a backdrop to her life, it is a direct influence on her neurochemistry. The fourth principle is psychological reactance, a powerful emotional alarm system that activates whenever human beings perceive a threat to their free will. The moment a woman feels her personal freedom, choice, or autonomy is being restricted, this defiant response kicks in. It is an intense knee-jerk reaction that has been studied extensively since the theory was first proposed by Brehm in 1966. Tell a woman she cannot do something, that a specific path is closed to her, or that a certain choice is completely forbidden, and watch how fast her psychology shifts. Suddenly, that forbidden option becomes 10 times more desirable than it ever was before. This is not about her being intentionally difficult, contrarian, or rebellious just for the sake of it. It is a deeply ingrained evolutionary defense mechanism designed specifically to protect self-determination and personal boundaries. Reactance is the motivation to regain a freedom after it has been lost or threatened. Throughout history, women have faced systemic, cultural, and relational attempts to limit their choices, being told what was appropriate, what was allowed, and what roles they had to play. As a direct result, the psychological reactance response is often amplified and highly sensitive in the female psyche. The second someone tries to employ pressure, manipulation, or heavy-handed control, her brain flags it as an existential threat to her freedom. Instead of backing down, an intense internal push mandates that she reassert her independence at all costs. This is why ultimatums, controlling behavior, and aggressive persuasion techniques always backfire spectacularly with women. The moment she smells control, her respect evaporates and her brain focuses entirely on breaking the restriction to prove that she belongs to herself. As one expert succinctly put it, telling a human what to do pisses them off. Reactance theory predicts that when people perceive that they have the freedom to do something, having someone restrict it causes a swift and strong reaction. This is a fundamental aspect of human psychology that anyone seeking to influence or connect with women must understand. The fifth principle concerns emotional memory encoding, a biological reality that explains why women often seem to remember past events with such vivid clarity. Women do not hold grudges out of spite. Their brains are biologically built to create intense memory formations during emotionally charged events. While completely neutral days and mundane moments fade into the background, any conversation, argument, or shared milestone wrapped in high emotion is immediately tagged by the female brain with near photographic clarity. The moment an experience carries significant emotional weight, whether it is a surge of joy or a stinging betrayal, the amygdala and hippocampus work in overdrive to lock that event into permanent storage. The exact words spoken, the subtle tone of voice, the physical context, and the visceral feeling in the room are permanently filed away. This is not a conscious choice to hoard past grievances. It is pure, unadulterated biology. This hyper-detailed memory system is actually an ancestral tracking mechanism that was vital for survival. In early human history, ancestral women relied heavily on navigating complex social structures, reading tribal dynamics, and identifying who was safe, who was cooperative, and who posed a threat to them and their children. Remembering a social slight, a broken promise, or an act of aggression was not petty. It kept people alive. In modern relationships, however, this evolutionary superpower can make it look like a woman simply refuses to let things go. When a conflict arises, a comment made 6 months or even 3 years ago can be recalled instantly with all of its original emotional intensity. Understanding this biology bridges a massive communication gap. She is not weaponizing the past. Her brain is simply presenting an emotionally vivid record that remains completely accessible. As one reflection on female psychology noted, women are not fragile. They are finely attuned. Their emotional memory is vast, sensitive, and deeply relational. A change in tone, a brief silence, or an absent look can speak volumes. Women may forgive, but they never forget. The emotional memory of women is not a flaw to be managed, but a feature to be understood. The sixth principle addresses the task switching price, a cognitive cost that society often ignores. True multitasking is a neurological impossibility for everyone, but women possess an advanced ability for rapid task switching. The human brain is physically incapable of processing two high-level complex cognitive tasks at the exact same split second. What looks like seamless multitasking is actually a high-speed mental game of ping pong. A woman's brain is uniquely configured to shift focus between entirely different complex activities, like managing a high-stakes career project, organizing family logistics, and responding to social obligations much faster and smoother than the average man's brain. Because the neural pathways connecting the left and right hemispheres are highly optimized, she can drop one train of thought, pick up another, and return to the first one with incredible agility. However, this impressive mental gymnastics comes with a massive hidden cognitive cost that society completely ignores. Every single time the brain is forced to switch gears, it burns up vital glucose and oxygen, paying a steep switch cost in mental energy. This rapid-fire transition leaves behind a phenomenon called attention residue, meaning a small piece of her focus remains stuck on the previous task while she is trying to handle the new one. Over the course of a day, constantly jumping between roles causes profound cognitive fatigue, erodes deep focus, and spikes stress levels. The cultural expectation that women should naturally be able to effortlessly juggle a million things at once is not just unfair. It is scientifically flawed and neurologically ignorant. While her brain can switch gears faster, she still pays the full physical price for the exhaustion it creates. Research has shown that even brief mental blocks created by shifting between tasks can cost as much as 40% of someone's productive time. The switching cost refers to the cognitive price you pay each time you switch tasks. This is a reminder that the appearance of effortlessness often conceals a significant underlying cost. The seventh principle is the persuasion pipeline, a psychological phenomenon that exploits the human need for consistency. Due to deep social conditioning around cooperation and maintaining relational harmony, women are highly susceptible to a powerful psychological phenomenon known as the foot-in-the-door technique. From a very young age, girls are often socialized to be helpful, accommodating, and attuned to the needs of others. This creates an internal default setting that favors saying yes to small, reasonable requests. When someone asks a woman for a minor, effortless favor, something so small it feels entirely harmless to agree to, she will naturally comply. However, this small initial yes completely alters her internal landscape. The moment she agrees, her brain updates its self-image, unconsciously deciding, I am a helpful, cooperative person who supports this individual. This minor agreement sets a psychological trap based on the human need for consistency. When that same person returns later with a much larger, far more demanding request, a powerful internal pressure kicks in. The female mind experiences a strong aversion to cognitive dissonance, the uncomfortable feeling of acting against one's established identity. To look consistent both to herself and to the outside world, she feels a massive psychological urge to say yes to the big request, even if she internally wants to reject it. A small, innocent favor effectively locks in the momentum for a major future commitment. As one description of the technique notes, you can use small commitments to manipulate a person's self-image. The tactic of starting with a little request in order to gain eventual compliance with related larger requests has a name: the foot-in-the-door technique. This persuasion pipeline is why recognizing the tactic is so liberating. Understanding that a small past agreement does not obligate a future sacrifice empowers a woman to set firm boundaries and say no when the stakes get too high. The eighth principle explores the language of eye contact, a form of nonverbal communication that carries immense weight. The right amount of eye contact triggers an immediate, measurable release of oxytocin in a woman's brain, instantly laying the groundwork for trust, intimacy, and emotional resonance. Because women are biologically and socially conditioned to be highly attuned to nonverbal cues, the way someone looks at them carries immense weight in an interaction. When you hold a woman's gaze with a relaxed, open expression, it signals safety, focused attention, and genuine respect. It tells her brain that you are fully present, transparent, and emotionally engaged in the moment. This neural connection creates a powerful sense of bonding, making eye contact one of the most potent tools for building an authentic, deep alignment between two people. However, the line between deep connection and an existential threat response is razor thin. If eye contact becomes prolonged, unblinking, or overly intense, her brain's threat detection center, the amygdala, instantly flags it as an aggressive, invasive, or predatory signal. Women are incredibly sensitive to these micro distinctions. They can feel the exact shift when eye contact moves from saying, "I see you," and value your presence, to saying, "I am trying to dominate or control this space." In an instant, her nervous system will switch from safety to high alert, causing her walls to go up and completely transforming her assessment of the interaction. Context, comfort, and mutual comfort dictate the entire experience, proving that gaze is a language that must be spoken with care. As Luan Bryandi noted, the female brain is a high-performance emotion machine geared to tracking moment by moment the nonverbal signals of the innermost feelings of others. The eyes are not just windows to the soul. They are also potential triggers for primal defense mechanisms. The ninth principle concerns authority and compliance, a dynamic that stems from intense childhood socialization. Statistically, women are more likely to comply with authority figures even when they internally disagree with the command or feel deep discomfort with the situation. This compliance dynamic does not stem from a lack of independent thought or structural weakness. It is the direct result of intense childhood socialization. Across most cultures, girls are heavily rewarded for being agreeable, polite, avoiding conflict, and maintaining social peace at all costs. They are taught to be good girls who do not make waves or challenge the status quo. This conditioning runs so deep into the subconscious that it becomes an automated behavioral script that follows them directly into adulthood. This deep-seated programming creates severe internal friction when a woman finds herself facing a figure of authority, whether that is a boss, a medical professional, a societal leader, or a dominant partner. Even if her intuition and logic are screaming that something is wrong, unjust, or incorrect, the primitive fear of social disapproval, rejection, or causing a scene creates a massive barrier to speaking up. The pressure to conform and submit to the perceived leader often overrides her personal truth in the moment. Becoming consciously aware of this automatic compliance loop is the absolute first step toward shattering it. By recognizing that this urge to agree is just an old socialized script, a woman can learn to separate healthy respect from unhealthy submission, giving herself the explicit permission to assert her own boundaries and challenge authority whenever it crosses the line. As one pioneer of feminine psychology, Karen Horney asserted, "Male realities cannot describe female psychology or define women's gender by virtue of the lack of experiences of voices from girls and women. The psychology of women has hitherto been considered only from the point of view of men. This historical bias has contributed to the perpetuation of compliance patterns that do not serve women's best interests." The 10th principle is the sunk cost trap, a psychological fallacy that explains why people often stay in failing situations long after they should have left. Once a woman invests her time, emotional energy, or effort into a relationship or career path, walking away becomes incredibly difficult due to a psychological trap known as the sunk cost fallacy. This fallacy is an irrational glitch in human logic that forces us to continue pouring resources into a losing venture simply because of what we have already spent in the past. When a woman faces a failing situation, her brain struggles to separate past investments from future potential. Instead of looking at the reality of the present moment, an internal voice whispers that she must keep trying, keep enduring, and keep giving to make all her past sacrifices, tears, and late nights worth something. The thought of walking away feels less like a smart strategic pivot and more like throwing away a massive piece of her life. Because female psychology heavily weights deep emotional connection and loyalty, this trap springs shut with incredible force in romantic dynamics and long-term projects. Leaving a toxic partner, a stagnant marriage, or a dead-end career path can feel like a public admission of total failure. Her brain interprets quitting as a confirmation that all the time she invested was a complete waste, which is a deeply painful reality to accept. As a direct result, she will double down, staying trapped in broken dynamics and toxic cycles long after objective logic. Friends and family say it is time to throw in the towel. As the psychologist Daniel Carnean observed, the sunk cost fallacy keeps people for too long in poor jobs, unhappy marriages, and unpromising research projects. Breaking free requires a radical shift in perspective, recognizing that past time is already gone, and the only thing left to save is the future. The resources cannot be recovered. Hence, the costs are sunk. Such sunk costs should not matter for one's next decision. The 11th principle concerns the neurochemical rewards of kindness, a biological feedback loop that reinforces pro-social behavior. Performing an act of kindness triggers an immediate, massive flood of serotonin and dopamine in a woman's brain, creating a powerful internal reward system that is deeply rooted in biology. When a woman goes out of her way to support a friend, help a stranger, or offer a genuine word of encouragement, her brain chemistry experiences an instant upgrade. These feel-good neurochemicals lower stress, elevate mood, and create a physical sensation often referred to as a helper's high. This is not just about cultural conditioning or being polite. The female nervous system is literally engineered to feel a profound sense of peace and joy whenever it engages in cooperative, uplifting behavior. What makes this biological loop truly extraordinary is that it operates as a shared chemical network. The positive brain chemistry is not isolated to the giver. It simultaneously spikes in the nervous system of the person receiving the kindness. Even more fascinating, bystanders who simply witness the act of kindness unfold experience a sympathetic neurological response, catching the exact same chemical boost. This ripple effect is the precise reason why women-dominated spaces, communities, and networks naturally place such a massive, non-negotiable priority on mutual support, community care, and pro-social behavior. Biology rewards women for making the people around them feel safe, creating a beautiful feedback loop where elevating the tribe directly elevates the self. As Luan Bryandine noted, the female brain is wired to seek emotional connection and communication. The oxytocin-dopamine rush once again suppresses anxiety and skepticism and reinforces the love circuits in the brain. This is not a choice, but a biological imperative. The 12th principle addresses the safety performance gap, a critical insight for anyone seeking to understand female cognitive performance. High stress, constant pressure, and perceived emotional threats instantly constrict the female brain's cognitive flexibility, forcing its focus into a narrow, rigid survival mode. The moment a woman's stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline skyrocket, the prefrontal cortex begins to downregulate. This is the exact part of the brain responsible for high-level creative problem-solving, abstract thinking, and innovation. Under pressure, her mind is forced to rely on binary, safe, and repetitive thought patterns just to manage the immediate tension. Trying to force breakthrough ideas or peak productivity out of a woman who is constantly walking on eggshells or facing intense professional pressure is an exercise in futility. The biology simply is not available. Conversely, when a woman is placed in a psychologically safe, genuinely supportive, and relaxed environment, a form of cognitive magic takes place. The moment her nervous system drops out of high alert and registers complete security, her brain's associative networks expand exponentially. Without the mental tax of defending herself from stress or judgment, her mind is free to wander, connect disparate ideas, and take calculated creative risks. Innovation, operational performance, and brilliant thinking explode. The exact second external pressure is replaced by genuine safety. If you want to see a woman perform at her absolute highest cognitive baseline, you must realize that security is not a luxury. It is the biological prerequisite for her success. The female brain has a far more negative alert reaction to relationship conflict and rejection than does the male brain. This heightened sensitivity means that the environment is not just a factor, but a primary determinant of cognitive function. The 13th principle concerns social conformity pressures, a powerful force that shapes female behavior. The evolutionary drive to maintain group cohesion and tribal alignment makes the pressure to conform exceptionally powerful within the female psyche. Throughout early human history, an isolated individual was a dead individual. For ancestral women, maintaining tight-knit social bonds, avoiding internal warfare, and securing the protection of the group was the ultimate strategy for keeping themselves and their offspring alive. In the modern world, that ancient survival instinct manifests as an intense, sometimes overwhelming pressure to agree with the crowd, blend into the background, and nod along with the established consensus. Even when a woman privately knows the group is dead wrong, speaking out against the collective, calling out bad behavior, or making waves carries a massive perceived risk of social isolation, gossip, and tribal rejection. Because the brain processes social exclusion through the exact same neural pathways as physical pain, standing out feels genuinely dangerous to her nervous system. Consequently, women frequently find themselves suppressing their own sharp intuition, flawless logic, or deeply held personal values just to protect group harmony and keep the peace. This creates a painful, ongoing internal battle between the need for social cooperation and the desire for authentic self-expression. Mastering this dynamic requires recognizing that while conformity has its place in keeping order, sacrificing personal truth for collective comfort is a price too steep to pay. To experience herself as so fundamentally different from the dominant patriarchal values understandably fills the woman with fear until she arrives at that point in her own development, where through experience and love that binds the opposites, she can clearly see the totality of humanity as a unity of masculine and feminine aspects of the self. This is the journey from conformity to authenticity. The 14th principle explores environmental color psychology, a subtle but powerful influence on female biology and cognitive alertness. Colors are not just visual decorations or simple aesthetic choices. They are direct neurological triggers that instantly alter female biology and cognitive alertness. The human eye processes different wavelengths of light, and the female brain is uniquely sensitive to how these wavelengths impact emotional and physiological states. Take the color red, for example. The moment a woman sees red, it triggers an immediate physical reaction. Her heart rate can spike slightly and her cognitive alertness sharpens instantly. Depending entirely on the context of the room, this deep crimson shade can communicate power, ignite physical attraction, or scream out a warning of danger. It forces the brain into an active high alert state of tracking and focus. On the complete flip side, shades of blue and green work like an instant psychological reset button. These cooler wavelengths of light send direct signals to the nervous system to physically lower stress hormones like cortisol, slow down an anxious heart rate, and stabilize wandering focus. They wash away mental fatigue and leave behind a clean slate of absolute mental clarity. This is not a coincidence or a marketing trend. It is the exact reason why wellness spaces, high-end spas, and medical facilities specifically designed for women are overwhelmingly painted in soft blues, sage greens, and earth tones. By understanding that colors act as silent, invisible dial turners for her internal chemistry, a woman can intentionally design her bedroom, workspace, or living environment to automatically command whatever mental state she needs, whether that is high-octane productivity or profound deep relaxation. The 15th and final principle is the immediate reward bias, a fundamental challenge to self-control and long-term planning. The primitive human reward system is fundamentally hardwired to choose a smaller reward right now over a massively life-changing payout miles down the road. And women experience this evolutionary tug-of-war with acute intensity. When a woman is presented with a reward that is sitting right in front of her face, whether it is a luxury purchase, a highly indulgent meal, or a quick hit of comfort, her brain fires off a visceral, immediate dopamine response. The present moment feels real, tangible, and guaranteed. In stark contrast, a long-term benefit like saving for retirement 5 years away or sticking to a strict lifestyle change for health benefits months down the road feels incredibly abstract, foggy, and dripping with risk. The brain naturally asks, why sacrifice a sure thing right now for a ghost in the future? This immediate reward bias makes it incredibly easy to continuously delay crucial life shifts or overspend in the moment, even when logic and intelligence clearly dictate that the long-term choice is vastly superior. It is an ongoing battle against our own neurological wiring. To beat this bias, relying on sheer willpower or empty motivation is a losing game, because the immediate craving will always shout louder than a distant goal. Success requires a strategic pivot, making the future goal feel tangible today. This means breaking down massive distant milestones into tiny immediate micro-rewards that give the brain a dopamine hit right now by deliberately structuring her choices so that the smart path offers an immediate sense of victory. A woman can elegantly hack her own reward system to work for her future self instead of against it. The poet and philosopher Mary Wollstonecraft captured a related truth when she wrote that taught from infancy that beauty is woman's sceptra. The mind shapes itself to the body, and roaming round its gilt cage only seeks to adorn its prison. The cage of immediate gratification is one that must be recognized and transcended.